Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome in to the Point. Hope you're doing well. Hope you all had a great weekend. We are live this morning, or this afternoon, I should say, to react to everything that we saw from over the weekend. It's been a minute since we've chatted, but happy to be with you all today. We'll talk Monday, we'll do Wednesday, we'll do a Friday show. So lots of content coming this week. Last week, we learned that the Maple Leafs fired Sheldon Keefe. We learned that Brendan Shanahan is going to be sticking around. There's conversations about Craig Berube, about Todd McClellan, who's actually interviewing for the job today. It sounds as if the New Jersey Devils, who also have a vacancy, have moved off of Craig Berube. They're interested in Sheldon Keefe becoming their head coach. So when we do get coaching updates, we'll talk to them about with all of you on the show. So stay tuned for that. That's really the update from the coaching world. But we still got 4 series ongoing in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And this is my opinion, but I don't even think it's anybody who's watching the hockey can disagree. The second round has been far superior to the first. And that normally is not I thought the first round of the playoffs was a fairly pedestrian hockey, not all that interesting. Series were over relatively quickly. But in this second round, you're seeing animosity, you're seeing violence, you're seeing some interesting things, upsets, some might say. And I want to start today talking Canucks-Oilers. Canucks take a 2-1 series lead, defeating Edmonton in Edmonton last night in front of a great home crowd. Edmonton has had many great things. The city sucks. It's kind of a scary city. They got a great peach cider. I'll say that. Great peach cider down there. Other than that, Edmonton, the city is, it's the St. John of out west, and that's not a compliment. But they got great crowd. They're passionate. They love their hockey. They love their Oilers, city of champions. And they were ready for it last night. And Vancouver goes in there and gets the win. Couple things from the game. Stuart Skinner was a very good goaltender in the regular season. You had a strange Oilers season where the first month and a half they were the worst team in the league. And they had to fire Jay Woodcroft, and they move off, and then they have to send Jack Campbell down to the minors. We haven't seen him since. And Stuart Skinner was really handed the reins of the team. Calvin Pickard of Fredericton, New Brunswick was a good backup, did his job, but he was the backup, and you knew it was Skinner's time to shine. Well, in the past 2 seasons, after the regular season is over, the Oilers win around. They beat the Kings the last 2 years, and Stuart Skinner was the starting goalie for both of those series. After you get by the first round, Stuart Skinner becomes the worst goaltender in the NHL, and that's not this is the truth. His numbers are beyond terrible. Second round, he's allowing 4 goals on every 18 shots that he faces, which is an under 700 save percentage. And he's just not a reliable goaltender, period. Last night, Stuart Skinner allowed 4 goals on 15 shots. He had 11 saves in 2 periods, and yet somehow the Oilers lost the game. Meanwhile, Artur Shilov's third-string goaltender, 8 career NHL games before the playoffs started, had a .933 save percentage last night and made 42 saves on 45 shots that he faced. Oh, and to add context to this already incredible feat, you're playing against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, two of the best players in the world. Not to mention one of the most lethal power plays. Now, could the Oilers have done more to win last night? Absolutely. Their penalty kill is a problem. They give up far too many easy slot chances. Brock Besser scored both his goals in the slot. Elias Lindholm scores his goals in the slot area. That can't happen. They do it too easy. Their box is weak. They give up too many chances. So their penalty kill is not good. True. But also, you need a guy to make a save. And Stuart Skinner last night couldn't make a save. Big moment, lets one in while Shelov's, the other end, finds a way to keep the puck out of the net. So, the Oilers, to me, are as good as any team in the league at their apex. They played Vegas last year, and to me, primarily, yes, Vegas was a great team who went on to win the Stanley Cup. But the Oilers could have beat them last year. They didn't because their goaltending was not good enough. In the second round, Stuart Skinner was pulled 4 out of the 6 games. Now, they didn't trust Jack Campbell. Jay Woodcroft did not trust Jack Campbell last year to start games after Stuart Skinner would be pulled. And for good reason. Look where Jack Campbell ended up this year. In the American Hockey League, and he was never recalled again. Calvin Pickard, while a suitable backup, nice story that he's from Fredericton, New Brunswick, he only faced 3 shots last night. The Canucks had 18 shots on goal, and they won another game. By the way, this is the 3rd time in the playoffs that they've won a game without getting 20 shots on goal. Impressive feat for them. McDavid was pointless last night. I thought he was fantastic. He played his ass off. He played 30 minutes. Played 30 minutes last night. Zach Hyman played 26 minutes last night and had 8 shots on goal. Draisaitl had 2 points, 5 shots on goal, played 29:04. Their best players played a ton. Evan Bouchard played 31 minutes in a regulation game last night. Crazy stuff. Darnell Nurse only played 18. Didn't play well. But to just go through, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins played 22:32, Bouchard 31, Ekholm 24 minutes, Draisaitl 29:04. Stuart Skinner has to make a save or they're going to lose the series. Because Shelov's, DeSmith have been better than Stuart Skinner. Now, I'm not panicked about the Oilers yet. Because I trust in McDavid and I trust in Draisaitl. If I'm an Oilers fan, I'm not sweating. Yes, I thought the series would be finished earlier, but I also thought Stuart Skinner could make a save. So I'm wrong. I said Oilers in 5. Credit to the Canucks for capitalizing when they have to. They draw penalties. They score on the power plays. 2 for 3 last night. 2 for 3, Lindholm and Lindholm. 2 power play goals by him. But Brock Besser, Quinn Hughes, JT Miller, and that Canucks third line has been fueling their run. Because Elias Pettersson continues to be terrible, in my opinion. He's not doing a whole, played 15 minutes last night. That tells you how good he was. He's just a non-factor. He's out there bebopping around. But Brock Besser competing. Elias Lindholm, who they complained about when they traded for, he's playing now. Dakota Joshua might be a third-line player, but he's a huge mountain of a man, and he's a pain in the ass. Connor Garland's annoying. He's like a little gnat that just somehow ends up everywhere you don't want him to be. So credit to the Canucks for capitalizing when they have the opportunities and getting big saves. But if you're the Edmonton Oilers, I go back to Stuart Skinner in Game 4 because I have no other option. He's my guy. He's my number one goalie. You made your bed, you have to lay in it. You made your decision. You don't have another option. Jack Campbell, he's not going in there. Calvin Pickard's a backup goalie, and I don't think if you start him one game, then you're kind of stuck with him moving forward, and I don't think you can go that route. Stuart Skinner has been the reason that the Oilers have lost 2 out of the 3 games. 100%. In Game 1, he allowed 3 goals that just can't go in. That Connor Garland through the legs goal was a complete ice. That can't go in anytime, anywhere. And it was the game-winning goal. But he's the huge issue because the Oilers are better than the Canucks. In particular, without Thatcher Demko, but they're just better top to bottom. Now, at the end of the game, if you were asleep, horn sounds. Nikita Zadorov kind of gives McDavid a chop in the back. He stumbles in and Carson Soucy drills McDavid in the face with a cross-check. It was dirty. I don't think it was as bad as people think because McDavid was falling and he's kind of in an awkward position. And there wasn't much you can do on that play to kind of avoid what ended up happening. So, all that being said, Carson Soucy's having a phone hearing with the Department of Player Safety today, which means in all likelihood he's going to be suspended for at least Game 4. And I happen to agree that he should be. Situations do matter, and the player does matter. You can say all the time that it doesn't, but we think about it. Terrible things happen every day. Car accidents, people lose loved ones every day. But what do we remember when celebrities die? When the OJ chase, people get arrested every day. People die every day. But the Queen died. I remember my mother texted me heartbroken about it because we remember when the Queen passed away. And I'll have to remember it forever because it's on my GD birthday and I can't even stand her. That's a whole other story for another day. But when something happens to a person with a position of power, to a person with perceived gravitas, with perceived greatness, which McDavid does have, it's going to amplify the situation. It's going to make it more complex. And if it happened to Brett Kulak at the Horn, I don't know if there's a suspension. But you see the video, you see that it's Connor McDavid. Not to mention, last year, Alex Pietrangelo tried to chaw off Leon Draisaitl's arm by giving him that massive slash, and he was suspended 1 game, which was Game 5 of the second round series. So given that history, given that precedent of what happened last year, Carson Soucy will be suspended for at least Game 4. I would only give him a game. I don't think it's more than a game. But you do the crime, you got to do the time. But this is 2 straight years that teams are kind of using the same example of try to attack the 2 Oilers stars and you'll find a way to win the series. And it's not a bad way of going about it. McDavid and Draisaitl have been brilliant in this series. I said McDavid was pointless last night, but I thought he was fantastic. Draisaitl had 2 points, and he played 29 minutes, and he's all over the stat sheet. Took a penalty that led to a goal, but again, was that really even a penalty? They call it for a pick, but whatever. I thought he was good. But they try to hurt the best players. You try to eliminate them from the series. And I think if you're the league, I think if you're the Edmonton Oilers, you got to put a stop to this. Start of Game 4, I'm putting Vincent Desharnais, who's a big defenseman if you don't watch the Oilers. He's 6'7". He's a huge guy. I'm putting him on the ice, and I tell him, go ask Zadorov to fight. And if Zadorov says no, I go and I hit Pettersson on the first shift, or when there's a whistle, I grab his jersey. And this is also, I was talking to my good friend, former guest on the show, Sawyer Hanna, this morning, and he was talking about his experience, having coaches telling him to do this, having him being an enforcer for a really long time, being a fighter, knowing what it's like to be in those positions. Go up to that best player and let him know and tell him, cut the shit with our guys, or I'm going to come at you the next shift. I'm coming at you all night, and you don't want that. And I think that would end it, because I don't think Elias Pettersson wants to deal with that behemoth, wants to deal with other guys like a Corey Perry, like an Evander Kane, who will mix it up on the Edmonton Oilers. Just doesn't seem like a perfect mix for Elias Pettersson, not to mention he's been a complete no-show in these playoffs. So that's a way to handle it. But I think the Oilers do have to be aware of it, because they have it's back-to-back years. Teams feel like they can do it to two of the biggest stars in the league and get away with it. And it's small potatoes. You want to win Game 4. You want to win the series. You want to go to the conference finals if you're the Edmonton Oilers. But if a team, if anybody in life, if you can get away with something without anybody noticing and it benefits you, you're going to continue to do it. You put something on somebody's land, and it's right on the edge of being their land or your land, and you don't really know, but you put it there. And you've had it there for months. And the person asks, do you know if that's my land or your land? You got to say, I think it's mine. It doesn't really matter. And you try to brush it off so they don't look into it. So you don't have to find a new place to store whatever you've got on their land. Docks, whatever it might be. Why tell them that you're doing something that's incorrect? Because then you'll have to move it. Sure, you like to be a good neighbor, like Jay from Steak Farm, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you like to, rob Peter to pay Paul. That's life. Shit happens. Looking forward to Game 4. Because I believe the Oilers will come with a response. I do believe that they have a chip on their shoulder. Game 4 has become a must-win game for the Edmonton Oilers. Need to play with a purpose. Need to have a response. Need a goddamn save. But credit to the Canucks. They continue to fight. They continue to find a way. Rick Tocchet and that coaching staff finding solutions to the math problem. Interesting Game 3 last night. I think Game 4 will be just as interesting. But as I said off the top, I do believe that Carson Soucy will be suspended at least one game for the cross-check to the head of Connor McDavid at the conclusion of last night's Canucks-Oilers game. There's also a series going on. There's a game in Boston last night that has some more drama, some more intrigue. I want to start off by applauding the play of Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett's a playoff performer, a playoff guy. The definition of one. You think Sam Bennett, you might go, oh, he was drafted really high. Kind of a disappointment for a career. Sure. You could see it that way. You could go, what's he really done? Was a pick inside the top 10. But I don't really see what he brings to the table. He's not a big points guy. Was 4th overall in 2014 by the Calgary Flames. Well, in 69 playoff games, he's got 46 points. That's pretty damn good, by the way, with 20 goals. And he's got 4 points in 4 playoff games this year, 15 points in 20 playoff games last year. As he's aged, as he's gotten to Florida, he's becoming a better and better playoff performer. He buys into that identity. I think he's one of the more important players on that team. This year, if you look at his regular season, played 69 games because he does get injured. 41 points, 100 penalty minutes, plus 17 for all the old heads out there. So you look at that and go, that's a third-line center. 20 goal scorer, not too shabby. Maybe gets 82. But he plays a physical brand. He plays a very physical game. So you're going to have some wear and tear, and you're going to miss games in there. I look at his series, because he returned in Game 3. In his 2 games that he's played against the Boston Bruins, it's hard to argue that anybody has had more of an impact on this series. His first shift back, he hits Brad Marchand. And the video's been dissected 1,000 times. To me, he hits him. Marchand is going down. He might got a little pop from Bennett. You had Tim Peel, who says he's a dirty, gutless player. Tim Peel, Hampton, New Brunswick, I like you. It's the playoffs. Get over yourself. If it was a St. Louis Blues player, you'd probably say he's a saint. So, okay, you're a homer. That's good. There's lots of them in the media. But, come on. Sam Bennett hits hard. Sometimes he hits late. And he plays on the edge. He's reckless. He's fearless. And occasionally, he's going to hurt somebody. Now, I don't want to see anybody get hurt, including Brad Marchand. I'm a Brad Marchand fan. Lots of people in my life are not. They hate him. He's dirty. He whines. He bitches. He complains. Okay, Brad Marchand's a Stanley Cup champion, and all those people in my life, their favorite players have won squad douche. So Brad Marchand's better than all their favorite players, in my mind, because winning trumps 45, everything. So, with that being said, he knocks Marchand out of Game 4, and I think he's going to be knocked out of the series because it's not going to matter because Florida's going to win and close out the series in Game 5. But we'll get to that in a minute. He knocks him out of the series. Then he goes on to play a great Game 3. He's on the power play. He's on the penalty kill. He's hitting people. He's causing havoc. They hate him in Boston. Fine. He's getting booed last night when he touches the puck. How about last night? He draws a penalty in the third period, or late in the second, pardon me. Yes, this is late in the second. I think they tied the game, if I remember correctly. No, my first instinct was correct. It was the third period. Power play goal in the third. He draws the penalty. Then he scores the tying goal assisted by Lundell and Ivan Rodriguez, who both were phenomenal last night. So he gets a little tap in. And here's the other Sam Bennett play up for discussion. There's a scrum in front. Puck's going everywhere. Sam Bennett gives a little shove to a defenseman. He goes towards the goaltender. The goaltender still was able to move, still was able to get over there. It was not a complete hindrance to making the save. And they knock it home. Leads to a goal for the Florida Panthers by Sam Bennett. To me, this was creating space. This was boxing out, to use an NBA term. He wanted that ice in front of the net, and he worked harder than the defenseman to occupy it. Jeremy Swayman was phenomenal last night for Boston. He was the only reason the game was close. But he made the saves he had to. And looking at Bennett, he nudged him. He didn't give him a full-on cross-check. He didn't throw him on the goaltender. And Jim Montgomery has been unhinged since Game 4 against the Maple Leafs, really, because he was panicky all that series. He was worried about getting fired. Then he's so happy about defeating the Leafs. Huge celebration on the bench because he keeps his job. Then you win Game 1 and go, okay, maybe we got something going here. And the next 3 games, you get your ass kicked. And now you're down 3-1, heading back to Florida, and the series, to me, is over because Florida was always the better team. I said it from the beginning. Florida's better than Boston. They're better than Toronto. It doesn't matter who they play. They're going to win. They're going to kick their ass, just like they've been doing to the Boston Bruins. But that was not goaltender interference. It was a stupid challenge. The goal should have counted, which it did, which finally a review process goes the correct way. Because this review process that's supposed to simplify things, make things easier, make sure you get the right call, GMAB, is complete nonsense. But last night it works. And Jimmy Montz is losing it. And he's calling out Florida's players for hurting Marchand and gutless and all this different stuff. Okay, man. Fine. Fine, Jim Montgomery, fine. You're wrong, and you seem a little crazed, and you seem like you might be worried about your job still. I wouldn't be, and here's why. If Cam Neely and Don Sweeney and whoever else they got running the old mill up there, if they expected this Bruins team to go past even the first round, they're crazy. The Bruins were an inferior team to the Maple Leafs, but they found a way to win the series because the Maple Leafs are the Maple Leafs. Florida was in a Stanley Cup final last year. Florida won the Atlantic Division. Florida has Matthew Tkachuk. Florida has Sasha Barkov, who's playing the best hockey of his life. They have Sergei Bobrovsky, who's been consistently the best goaltender in the league for a minute now. In the playoffs, anyway. So, Jim, I know you want to win, but don't fret over your job. You'll still be employed next year. Your Bruins team won't be as good again because it's going to be a year older, and it's about time that this team kind of reshifted their priorities, found different ways to go about business. I love Pasta, but he's the only superstar on the team. Carlo and McAvoy are great. Could be great trade assets if you do want to potentially rebuild. But that was a goal. I hated the challenge. They did kill off the penalty. That wasn't the reason they lost. Sasha Barkov ends up getting the game-winning goal. And he's going to win the Selke Trophy, so he had a pretty good regular season defensively. He's got 5 goals in 9 playoff games. He does have some connection with Tarasenko, which is nice. But he's got 13 points in 9 playoff games. He wasn't great in the playoffs last year, and they still won. Playing over 20 minutes a game, in those big moments, winning faceoffs, winning over 56% of his faceoffs, penalty kill, he's got 4 power play points. He's been fantastic. Him and Tkachuk both have 13 points in 9 games. You need that consistency. You need your best players to show up. They have. For Hagee, who didn't have a point last night, but I thought he was great. I thought Florida as a team played a pretty solid game last night. He's got 10 points in 9 playoff games with 6 goals. So he's finding his way to be productive. So credit to the Panthers. Credit to what they're doing. But I looked at Florida as a whole last night. I was really impressed. I thought Ekblad had the best game of the series for him. He's had a couple moments where he hasn't been all the way there. But he had a point. He was +2. He did have 4 penalty minutes. One of the penalties was BS. 2 shots, 6 hits. Played 23 minutes of ice time. He did what he had to do. He was productive. He had a great game. Anton Lundell, 2 points. Rodriguez had 2 points. I thought that line, the third line of the Panthers, they controlled play in the offensive zone every time they were on the ice. They created opportunities. They kind of swung the game when Lundell scored that bad goal on Swayman late in the second period that just couldn't go in, but it did. But they were winning board battles, creating opportunities, score 3 unanswered goals. But the last 3 games, they've been the better team. No doubt about it. Game 3, they crushed them 6-2. The Bruins had 8 shots. After 2 periods, they had 17 for the game. Last night, the Bruins had 18 shots on goal. They're not possessing the puck. They're too slow. Florida's a faster, stronger, smarter team than the Bruins are. Swayman's been as good as you could ask him to be. He's been as advertised. He's been as good in this series as he's been against the Leafs, you could argue. He's faced more high-end quality scoring chances than he did against the Maple Leafs. Because the Maple Leafs couldn't score. They scored 12 goals in 7 games. Florida scored 9 in the last 2. Eventually, just a better team overpowers the inferior one. And that's what Boston's in. It's a tough position. Florida goes in and wins both games in Boston. But Bennett, Tkachuk, Verhaeghe, all these guys have played well, have been productive, have had an impact on this series. And Boston just doesn't have enough firepower to match. And it's just the reality of the situation. Game 5 tomorrow night in Sunrise. I believe the series is over tomorrow. Florida advances to the conference final for the 2nd straight year. Be the first time in franchise history that they can say that. Prior to last year, they'd only gotten to one other conference final back in 1996, and they got to the Stanley Cup final that year with Doug McClain behind the bench. But the Bruins season ends tomorrow. Panthers advance. Will we know who they're playing come Wednesday when we do our next podcast? The New York Rangers have a 3-1 lead on the Carolina Hurricanes. And I'm surprised. I still believe Carolina is a better team than New York. But this has been an eerily similar series to the matchup against Florida last year. Carolina lost every game by 1 goal. They lost multiple games in overtime, which has already happened in this series. And you could argue that the reason they lost was goaltending. And just Florida found a way to score a clutch of goals. Tkachuk with 3 game-winning goals in that series. The only difference so far is that the Hurricanes have not gotten swept. They avoided elimination on home ice Saturday night, defeating the Rangers 4-3, snapping Igor Shesterkin's streak of over 30 straight playoff games without allowing 4+ goals. The record being his teammate Jonathan Quick's, who went 34 with that long of a stretch, which is quite incredible. Shesterkin has been phenomenal in this series, keeping them in it, having some really good performances. But Brady Shea scores on the power play late with a bullet, former Ranger, and they avoid elimination. They head back to the Mecca tonight. The Rangers have only lost 1 playoff game. They have never lost on home ice this postseason so far. And normally you get to 3-0 and you go, this series is over. Seeing the Hurricanes get one, I don't feel that way. Because Carolina's been the better team. They've controlled puck possession. They've gotten shots on goal. They've forced power plays. Extremely aggressive team. And what would, for me, watching Game 4, if they can continue to get production from players you don't expect, they have a chance. Game 4, Evgeny Kuznetsov opens the scoring. 5 minutes later, Stefan Nason, a 4th liner, scores his 4th of the postseason. Sebastian Aho gets on the board, and ultimately Brady Shea and the second power play unit gets the game-winning goal. It's balanced scoring for both of these teams. Trocheck has been great in the playoffs for the Rangers. So has Artemi Panarin. Credit to him. Nobody's criticized him more over the last number of years than me. Lafreniere has emerged as a really dangerous threat. He's had a great series. Scored a lot of big goals. But I look at both of these teams and I say, good depth. They can roll 4 lines and get production. Mobile back ends that can create opportunities. You look at Gustafsson for New York, Schneider, Keandre Miller, Trouba, Carolina, Brady Shea, Slavin, Brent Burns. A lot of different ways that they can attack, that they can create scoring chances. The reason I don't think Carolina is dead yet, despite the fact that the Rangers have not lost in home ice, and despite the fact that the Rangers were the President Trophy winners in the regular season. I like the way the Hurricanes play. I like the way they limit scoring chances. If they play run and gun like they did after Will Cooley scored to make it 2-1 on a beautiful goal on Saturday night, they will lose because the Rangers want to play run and gun. They want to play up-tempo. They want to create scoring chances, frantic action. And that favors New York because Shesterkin's better than Freddie Anderson, and New York has more game breakers than Carolina does. But if they can get into that focused mindset, limit scoring chances, work the boards, have our top line of Carolina with Aho, Svechnikov, and Gensel continue to produce, continue to be elite, continue to be as good or better than the top line for the opposition, we can be okay here. We can compete with the Rangers. We can fight back because if they win tonight, you head back to Raleigh, North Carolina, and it's extremely hard to win in Carolina. They have that great home crowd. They're loud. They believe in their team. And the pressure will be on the Rangers to avoid a Game 7 back in New York. But goaltending can be the answer. Shesterkin allows 4 goals, but will he allow 4 again? Can Carolina play good enough defensively to avoid 4 goals getting past Frederik Andersen? Can they keep themselves in the game? I don't think they've given up. I think they believe in themselves. Rob Brind'Amour certainly has not. Motivated as ever. Sure, there's rumors, Rob Brind'Amour, if they lose now, maybe the Maple Leafs can swoop in. Toronto job, even though it's not as good a job. Sure, it'll be more money, but that doesn't mean it's the right job for Brind'Amour, who I think values winning, values competing. I think whatever happens, if they lose in the second round, he'll go back to Carolina. Wouldn't change my opinion that he's one of the best coaches in the game today. You could make a strong argument. He's the best coach in the game today. And seeing coach movement, seeing coaches that are going to get another job, it's hard to argue, okay, we're going to go with somebody else than Rob Brind'Amour. But going to look on FanDuel here at the game tonight. I'm sure the Rangers they should be the favorites, being at home and everything they've accomplished this season and so far in the postseason. Looking at the games here. Minus 275 for the Rangers, plus 220 for the Hurricanes tonight. I'm not betting on the game. Haven't placed a bet since the Super Bowl. But I like the Hurricanes to win tonight, force a Game 6 back in New York, make it interesting. Sorry, back in Carolina, pardon me. They're playing in New York tonight. The Mecca will be loud. The Mecca is definitely feeling better about the Rangers than they do about their Knicks, who we'll talk about, who have been struggling as of late. But I'm still banking on the fact that they're going to find a way. Find a way to win tonight. Hurricanes force Game 6. Dallas, Colorado. Dallas played a Dallas Stars game in Game 3. Limiting scoring chances, clogging up the neutral zone, making it frustrating on their opponent, and getting great goaltending from Jake Oettinger, which he's been great since about Game 2 of Round 1. You look at the game sheet and you go, Colorado outshoots Dallas Colorado, better scoring chances. But then you look and go, Nathan McKinnon played 24 minutes, -2. Didn't have a big impact. Nikushkin, Lehkonen, Middlestat, Makar, all off the game sheet. All didn't have a great impact. Kind of struggled in the big moments. Dallas made it frustrating. Tyler Seguin puts 2 goals in the back of the net while only playing 14 minutes. And Logan Stankoven, only playing 12 minutes, gets a pair of goals himself. That's a Dallas game to a T. Capitalize when you're going on the ice on turnovers. Find a way to be productive when you have to. And you score a pair of empty net goals. I look at Dallas and their biggest compliment, the best thing they have going for them, is their depth. Is the fact that there's more than one player who can have an impact, can produce, and be a threat. And you look around and you go, well, that guy's pretty good, and that guy's pretty good. And Jamie Benn, yeah, he's older, but he still has an impact. And Tyler Seguin can still shoot the puck. Logan Stankoven is a rookie. He was an American Hockey Leaguer 2 months ago. But he's still pretty damn fantastic. So that's their skill. And I think Colorado has a lot of depth themselves. I picked Dallas to win this series because I just trust their goaltending a little bit more. I think Heiskanen has been phenomenal in these playoffs the past couple games. He's playing a lot of minutes, putting himself in the big moments. The other night, he only had 1 point, but he played 25 minutes. 25 minutes. And you look around, the other defense on the team, Tanev played 24, and I want to talk about Tanev in a minute. Esa Lindell, 25. They're playing 4 guys a whole lot of minutes. Harley, Heiskanen, Tanev, and Lindell. Lundqvist played 3 minutes and 42 seconds. And Ryan Suter played 18, which isn't bad, and it's good for a guy of his age and the fact that he was bought out a year ago. Chris Tanev, to me, is awesome. I love Chris Tanev. Every time you see a playoffs, you see a guy have a good play, he's going to earn money on his next contract. Sure, that's true. I'm not going to go into that argument because it's an easy one, and they'll do it on another show. Chris Tanev is a huge part of why Dallas wins, and he was a great trade deadline acquisition. His ability to block a shot and then get the puck out of the zone razor quick, take the tape up the ice, which leads to another goal, which actually happened on the Tyler Seguin goal that was ultimately the game winner. That's what happened. He blocks a shot, tape to tape pass up the ice, and you go, What's happening here? How do you get that puck up the ice so fast? And then the play goes. He gets the puck up to Sam Steele, who was caught on a long shift. He finds Dodonov, who makes a great pass cross ice, and Georgiev did not have a chance in hell of making that save. But Tanev does those little things. He's on the ice every penalty kill. He's on the ice in the big moments. He has the complete trust of Peter DeBoer. And an NBA argument right now is, the Knicks, they played their stars too many minutes in the regular season. They're wearing down. This is what happens. It's pro sports. They basically play 5D for Dallas. But really 4, because Suter played 18 minutes. He didn't have a shift the last 10 minutes of the third period. I'm fine with that strategy because I'm going out with my best guys. The Montreal Canadiens had a really subpar team that got to the Stanley Cup final in the bubble. But they got there, and they played 4 defensemen. 4D basically the whole game, and they found a way to get to that Stanley Cup final, and they beat teams. They beat Toronto along the way. They beat Vegas along the way, and that's what they had to do. Joe Pavelski's not having a good playoffs. Joe Pavelski, I love little Joe. He's one of the best American-born hockey players of all time. But Joe Pavelski has kind of, he looks his age. He is now, he'll be 40 in July. The fact that he's still playing is a credit to him. The fact that he can still play on an NHL roster and look as good as he looks. Period. I don't know if he'll be a Hall of Famer, but what I do know is that he's fantastic and he deserves a ton of credit for an amazing career. One of the best Americans to ever lace them up. But he's 40. Nichushkin, Lehkonen, all these guys for Colorado aren't 40. Dodonov, not a spring chicken, finding a way to produce. Jamie Benn, Matt Duchene, Seguin, you could argue kind of past their prime, they find a way. Wyatt Johnson, Jason Robertson. And they all contribute together on the Dallas Stars with a really good young goaltender in Jake Ottinger. Now, all that being said, I predicted Dallas to win the series, and I think they will. On FanDuel, Dallas is the favorite going into tonight's game, which I don't agree with, because I think Colorado is going to win tonight. I have too much respect for Nathan MacKinnon, the way he plays, that I don't think he's going to have a response tonight. You can get Dallas minus 210, Colorado home team plus 172 going into the game. That's on FanDuel Sportsbook. I like Colorado to even it up. During the regular season, you know who the best home team was? Colorado Avalanche. Yes, Dallas was the best road team, so you know what that means. Something's gotta give. You also can get Boston. They're the favorite currently in Florida tomorrow night. Don't get that, and I go bet that right now if you can. So, Colorado has their flaws, but they're going to find ways to score goals. Nichushkin didn't score a goal for the first time in forever. It happens. He's got 9 goals in the postseason. McKinnon didn't have his best game, didn't value the puck as much as he usually does. I think he has a big response tonight. Like, he has a phenomenal game. I think he has a minimum 2 points. Georgiev hasn't been the problem in this series, so I'm not that worried about him. But Makar, McKinnon, those big guns for Colorado are going to come to play tonight. Colorado, that crowd will be energetic because the Nuggets win back-to-back games over the weekend. They're back in that series. So I got Colorado making it 2-2 heading back to Dallas. Series has been great so far. I think we get another fun game tonight, but Colorado comes out on top. Those are the 4 series. And again, I think they've been better in the first round by a wide margin. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of stuff going on with head coaches. And this other news, Jared Bednar says Jonathan Drouin has a game-time decision for tonight. He's a possibility. That would be nice to get him back in the mix. They do miss him and his speed. He was injured before the playoffs started. And you still got San Jose. There's no talk about San Jose, but they're opening. You got the Leafs job that is talked about all the time. New Jersey interviewing Sheldon Keefe. Reportedly, they really like him. And that's a good position. That's a good job. They're a good team. They have good prospects. For Sheldon Keefe to leave a good job where he started with the Leafs to go to another good job the with the Devils, good for him. So, interesting stuff for sure. But as we hear more on the coaching front, as if there's any other news that breaks, we will talk about it on Wednesday's show when it comes to NHL storylines. Just checking before we move on to another topic. But Rangers, Philip Hedl, who missed Game 3 and Game 4, and Blake Wheeler participate in Monday morning's skate. We're full participants at Monday's morning skate as the team prepares for Game 5 against Carolina Hurricanes, according to Dan Rosen of NHL.com. Missed Game 4 due to illness. Blake Wheeler had a pretty nasty injury that has kept him out of the lineup for a while. Basically broke his leg, had surgery, and had 45 points. His 45 points in 65 career playoff games. Signed a 1-year, $800,000 deal with the Rangers last offseason after he was bought out. Was having a decent year. I'm not sure he'll draw back in these playoffs if there's somebody that's an easy guy to come out of the lineup. Matt Rempe has already come out of the lineup for different speed, different guys that they like. So we'll see. But the good thing for the Rangers is they have lots of guys, lots of options for guys to come in if teammates start to struggle. So something to look at there. In the CHL, London Knights 9-1 and 8-1 wins in their first two OHL final games against the Oshawa Generals. Just completely dominant. Old Easton Cowan, the Maple Leafs pick, has looked great. I've watched bits and pieces of the games, but at the same time, when you see 8-1, you're not tuning in for the rest of it. Game 3 goes tonight in Oshawa. We'll see if the Generals have any kind of pushback after two really embarrassing performances in the first two games. In the Q, Baie-Comeau, best regular season team, looked dominant the whole way. Great playoff run. Only one loss going into the President's Cup final. They lost both games at home to the Voltigeurs, including 1-0 in overtime on Friday. Ethan Gauthier with his 11th of the postseason. The series shifts back to Drummondville. Game 3 tonight. Should be fascinating. That's on TSN as well. In the WHL, a little more competitive, but not really. Portland loses both games at home to Moose Jaw. That Game 3 goes tomorrow night in Moose Jaw. Portland, the favorite going into that series, they're in big trouble. Moose Jaw has a lot of good prospects. Brandon Yeager, Matthew Savoy of the Buffalo Sabres, Jagger Furcus of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So Furcus has 14 goals. Martin Rasavi of the Montreal Canadiens. Nate Danielson for the Detroit Red Wings. So a lot of good players in that series, but you got the CHL playoffs ongoing. Let's pivot to the UFC. UFC, they're killing it right now just as a business. UFC in Saint Louis this weekend. Highest gate ever for a non-pay-per-view event. Great crowd. They were energetic from fight one on the prelims. You also had Dana White saying after they want to get out of the Apex business, which if you're not familiar, the UFC Apex is in Vegas, and they hold the Ultimate Fighter fights there, the Dana White Contender Series fights there, but there's no crowd, there's no real atmosphere. And, Dana says, I want to get out of the Apex by the end of the year, host a lot of these shows in different cities. I think this weekend proved you don't need a superstar, so to speak. In the main event, you had Derek Lewis, Joaquin Buckley and Nurulsan Rubizov should have been the main event, but you had Derek Lewis in it. He scores his 15th knockout, which is the most ever, fifth in UFC history. Throws his cup, takes his shorts off. Great moment, just peak Derek Lewis. But that's fine. But you just need hometown guys. You need good fights on paper. The UFC is a knowledgeable crowd. They know their fighters. A lot of the diehards like me watch every fight, watch every event, whether it's at the Apex, St. Louis, wherever it might be. And you go through the night. Derek Lewis gets that to wrap up the night. Fun stuff. Joaquin Buckley, hometown guy, has now won 5 fights in a row, ranked in the welterweight division, interesting personality, kind of a crazy character, calls out Conor McGregor, which isn't going to happen. But he says, give me Gilbert Burns. I think that's a fun fight. I think that could happen. Gilbert's lost a couple fights in a row. Joaquin Buckley wants to move up the rankings. Younger guy, 30 years old, ready to pounce. Fun. Carlos Ulberg, Australian, light heavyweight division. 11-1 as a professional. Has kind of been mowing through the UFC roster. Beat Young Da-un, defeated Ihor Pretoria. He's beaten everybody that's come across him since his last losses in 2021, his UFC debut to Kennedy Njoku. But he fights a ranked fighter, Alonzo Menefield. He knocks him out in 12 seconds. Horrible game plan by Menefield, but also Carlos Ulberg's a dangerous guy. He's got Israel Adesanya's Eugene Behrman as his head coach. And they got a good thing going down there in Australia, what they're doing with their guys. So Carlos Ulberg, another big win. He's a fun guy, dangerous guy at light heavyweight. Lightweight fight, Maciej Rebecki fighting Diego Ferreira. Diego Ferreira is almost 40 years old. Rebecki's kind of this up-and-coming, only one loss ever. Dangerous fighter. Dana White Contender Series. 2023, defeats Roosevelt Roberts, then defeats Luke Robinzov, then beats Nick Fuhr. He had a hell of a year. But Diego Ferreira has been around the block, been in a lot of big fights, defeated Michael Johnson. He's fought Matthias Gamrot. He's fought Beneil Dariush. Yes, he's lost those fights, but he's been in them. He's defeated Anthony Pettis back in the day. He's been in there with some legends. He's been in there with a lot of really good martial artists. Defeated Jared Gordon, defeated Kyle Nelson. He'll be 40 in January. But he goes out there, torches Rebecki. Both of Rebecki's eyes are basically shut at the end of the fight. And he gets a knockout late in the last 9 seconds, gets a finish, still proving that he can beat any contender in the lightweight division. Great fight, incredibly entertaining, really good. Sean Woodson, another local guy from St. Louis, who is a massive guy for the 145-pound weight class, fights Alex Caceres, who's been at featherweight for a long time, been in there with some of the best himself. Sean Woodson gets another victory. That's 2 in 2024. Defeated Charles Jourdain in Toronto in January. Defeats Alex in St. Louis. 12-1. He's kind of Mr. Decision at this point. But he knows what he's doing. He's a problem in the weight class. You could argue he lost the fight. It was close. It was really close. But he gets the decision. Going to be ranked now. looking at his body type with some of these guys in the division, it's interesting. Then you have Rebeles Despang from Cuba. He loses to Waldo Cortez Acosta. Wasn't really that interesting of a fight, but Cortez Acosta is 12-1 as a pro, continues to get better, knows what he's doing. On the prelims, Chase Hooper, who's a lot of fun, gets a submission victory. Terrence McKinney, who I like, T-Rex, gets knocked out in 37 seconds by a nasty head kick from Esteban Rubices, who at lightweight looks dangerous, 13-1. Tabitha Ricci back in the win column with a split decision win over Tisha Pennington. Trey Waters, Billy Ray Goff, fight of the night. A complete war. He gets the decision win. Charles Johnson, flyweight, it's incredibly fun. Fights Jake Adley, who's always game. Another great fight. He gets a victory. And Veronica Hardy wins her third straight fight since her hiatus. Comes back, defeats JJ Aldrich, by far her toughest opponent, 29-28. And she gets another victory. We'll see how quick she returns. I know they're going back to Manchester in July, so I'm sure that her husband, who is from England, will want her to be fighting on that card. But it was a really good day of fights. Entertaining, solid performances. Again, you don't need necessarily awesome guys. You don't need Conor McGregor to be on a card for people to show up, for people to care. The UFC is such a great product right now that people are buying in. People are searching for it. They can't wait to watch it. Now, next weekend, not a great card. Not a great card. The main event's fine. Edson Barbosa, Laurent Murphy. Barbosa's a legend at featherweight. Defeated Sadiq Youssef last year. Defeated Billy Quarantino last year. But he's fought Giga Kurtaze. He's fought Shane Burgos. He's defeated Shane Burgos. He's fought Dan Ige, Justin Gaethje, Paul Felder, Dan Hooker, Kevin Lee. He's fought Habib. Beneil Dariush, defeated him back in 2017. Defeated Anthony Pettis. Fought Tony Ferguson. Michael Johnson. I mean, he's been in there with some of the best the UFC has had to offer. Donald Cerrone, King Bobby Green. Laurent Murphy has won no contest, but he's never lost as a professional. Last fight was in July of 2023, so he'll be excited to get back in the cage. And he's a dangerous guy. He can knock people out. Chaos Williams, Charleston Harris at featherweight will be in there. Adrian Yanez, Salvador at bantamweight should be all right. Let's see. Umar Sy, whose brother fights in the PFL, he'll make his debut 6-0 as a pro. We'll see against Rodolfo Bellato. Clayson Rodriguez at bantamweight should be interesting. Yeah, it's not a great card. It's not a great card, but it's MMA, and I'm going to watch it. A couple weeks, UFC 302 in Newark, New Jersey. Islam Makhachev, Dustin Poirier for the lightweight title. Really, Dustin Poirier's last chance at undisputed gold. You also have on that card Sean Strickland against Paulo Costa in the middleweight division, which is a fun, big fight in the co-main event. And also added this weekend to that particular card, Kevin Holland, short notice, fighting Michael Ojacek, who his last fight he got knocked out by Michel Pereira in Miami. He's a physical guy. Kevin Holland, physical guy. Kevin Holland also fought in Miami and lost to Michael Venom Page. This fight's at 185, so not bad. You also have Jailton Almeida, Alexander Romanov in the heavyweight division. On this card, Randy Rude Boy Brown, who's from the New York area. He's on it. Prelims, Roman Kopylov. I love watching him fight. Nico Price, Jeremiah Wells, Roman Dulitze might be fighting. They haven't confirmed that yet. But pretty solid card in Newark before the return of Conor McGregor on June 29th. But a solid weekend for the UFC. To basketball. Nuggets Timberwolves. Series is tied 2-2. Neither team has won a home game. Nuggets lose game 2. They get blown out by 26 points. Jokic, I think, has 6 turnovers. Jamal Murray shoots 3 for 18 from the field. And you look at it and go, oh no. The champs are on the ropes. But then Friday night, they go into Minnesota and they defeat the Timberwolves by 27. On the road. Jokic, 24, 14, and 9. Michael Porter Jr. had 21. Aaron Gordon had 13. Jamal Murray, 11 for 21 shooting with a 24 points. They just dominated. T-Wolves, Edwards had 19, 8 for 15 shooting, which isn't bad, but just wasn't his night. He only played 37 minutes. Conley played 29. Gobert returns from having a kid, really had no impact on the game. So, wasn't ideal. So then you get to game 4, which was last night, and you go, this is the night for Minnesota. Find a way to win this game. You find a way to win this series. And it's tight from the beginning, but Denver always controlled it. For large parts of the third/fourth quarter, they had at least a 12-point lead, and they never let it dip below 8. And you had Edwards, who would 5 for 8 from 3. He was the driving force in the Timberwolves. But Karl-Anthony Towns was garbage, 5 for 18, fouled, had 3 personal, just wasn't on. He was ineffective. Gobert had 11 points, 14 rebounds, and a block. But you could argue he should have been taken off the floor. They should have went small, but they kept him out there. Naz Reid would have been more effective, stretch the floor, make it more difficult, but they went in a different direction. But Jokic had 35, 7, and 7, 15 for 26 from the floor. And I like last night that he said, screw this, I'm shooting. I'm the best player on this team. Jamal Murray had 19, 8 for 17. Not great, but he made a huge shot at halftime from half court in front of Reggie Miller, Jamal Crawford, and Kevin Harlan, which is a great visual. The bench for the Nuggets, pretty solid. Gave them 27 points last night, including Justin Holiday getting 10, which nobody saw coming. Aaron Gordon, 11 for 12 from the floor, 27, 7, and 6. That's an Aaron Gordon game if you've ever seen one. 2 for 2 from three-point range. Denver is not as good as they were last year because they don't have the depth. They don't have Bruce Brown, who was really important to them winning. But Christian Brown has gotten better. Reggie Jackson still serves a purpose, and those minutes he gives you in the first half are better than the minutes he gives you in the second half. But in the second half, you kind of know you're playing your big guns basically the entire time. And they can deal with it. What I'll say about the Nuggets is they find a way. Jokic is so hard to stop. Some of those passes, reverse passes last night to Aaron Gordon, where he can just dunk the ball. Incredibly hard to pull up, but he does it because he's the MVP. And he's the best player in the game. And he can do it. It goes back to Denver. And Anthony Edwards, it's hard to see him being as good as he was last night in Game 5. But then again, the Nuggets have not won a home game yet. Has not happened in the series. I think the Nuggets are going to win this series. I thought the Nuggets were going to win the series before it started. The Nuggets in 6, I believe. And I think that's how it's going to go. Nuggets will win tomorrow night at home, finally win a game at home, and they'll win it. They'll finish off in Minnesota in Game 6. The Celtics were the best team in the regular season. The Celtics, top to bottom, are more talented, have more depth. than the Denver Nuggets. But I'm not sure when they meet that they'll be able to handle them. Because we've seen Boston. 2 close games back-to-back against Cleveland. They could have lost both of them. That game on Saturday, yeah, the Celtics won it. But they should win it. You're playing Cleveland. And Mitchell was great. He's had a really good playoff so far. Mobley, he was okay. But Strus gave them nothing. Okoro gave them nothing. Garland didn't give them much. LeVert was good off the bench. If you look at the Celtics, Tatum was fine. 33. Really good. Hell of a game. But Holiday was extremely efficient. Good defensively. Jaylen Brown at 28. And they didn't even need their bench to be all that good. They didn't play their bench that much. Because they just have more talent than Cleveland. The Knicks are wounded. The Knicks get crushed 121-89, and it was more than that. It could have been a 50-point loss. No OG Anunoby the last 2 games. Not healthy, not available. They're playing Precious Achiuwa in the starting lineup. Alec Burks is playing 23 minutes now. But Josh Hart, 1 for 6 from the floor. Brunson, 6 for 17. DiVincenzo, 3 for 13. They do look tired, and you can say Tibbs played them too many minutes, but it's also that's the team. And Jordan used to play big minutes every night, and that's how it worked in the NBA. It's not just, oh, we're doing this now, sports science. Athletes used to be able to do it, and it happened. So, goes back to the Mecca tomorrow night. I think the Knicks are going to win at home tomorrow night. I think it's awesome. I love watching those Knicks games at Madison Square Garden because the celebrity's free. I think the Knicks are going to win the series in 7. But I don't think it changes. If OG is healthy and you're playing against the Celtics, you have a better chance. No doubt about it. Nobody can make an argument otherwise. But do I think if OG is healthy for that whole series, do I think the Knicks beat the Celtics? No. I still think the Celtics probably beat them in 5, maybe 6 games. Doesn't change it. The East is a cakewalk for the Boston Celtics. Doesn't change the fact that they're a great team, but it's also just the truth of the situation. If they want to make it harder on themselves, that's their own doing. But they should cakewalk to the finals and see who they have waiting for them. If it's the Nuggets, it's the T-Wolves. If it's the Dallas Mavericks, who have a 2-1 series lead over the Oklahoma City Thunder right now. And I think the Mavericks are going to win that series. You got Mavericks, Thunder tonight in Dallas. I think Dallas is going to win that game again. Luka might be on one leg, but really the difference in that series, Kyrie hasn't had a game yet, which I'd say he's due. He had 22 on set, which is fine, but he can be better than that. PJ Washington had 27. 11 for 23 from the field. If they can get a performance from Kyrie where he goes for 40, where he's the driving force. Luka had 22, 7 for 17. Not great, but he seems like he's injured, playing on one leg. He's doing what he can. If Kyrie goes off, has a game, Luka's okay. PJ Washington chips in. We have something going here. Dallas wins this series. Dallas and Denver in the conference finals. But those games have been good. Looking forward to watching that one tonight. PGA Championship starts Thursday at Valhalla in Louisville, Kentucky. Prior to the start of this, Brooks Koepka won on the LIV Tour. Scottie Scheffler hasn't lost an event since the week before the Masters. And Rory McIlroy got back in the win column yesterday at the Wells Fargo. 6 under 65 on a Sunday. Second straight year he's won at the Wells Fargo, defeats Xander Schauffele by 5 strokes. You look at Rory, 67, 68, 67, 65, got better as the week went on. Schauffele got worse, 64, 67, 70, 71. They were tied after the 9th hole, and after Rory just completely ran away with the tournament. You had Ben On finished third, Jason Day, Sung J M tied for fourth, and Mackenzie Hughes tied for fifth. But some big names have won events. Scotty Scheffler, we'll talk about it, we'll preview it on Wednesday's pod. Scotty Scheffler will be the favorite going in. But McIlroy back in the win column. Brooks Koepka back in the win column. He is the defending champion who won the PGA Championship last year. But golf majors are fun. Looking forward to watching that. Rory looked great yesterday. Surgical, getting his first PGA Tour win of the year. Hasn't won a major in a decade. We'll see if he can end that streak this weekend. If he can be in contention Saturday would be a big deal for Rory McIlroy. But that's coming up. The Blue Jays lost 2 of 3 this weekend to the Twins. The Twins have won 17 of the last 19. Credit to them. I view this week as a huge turning point for the Blue Jays. They got the Orioles. 3 games set with the Orioles. And currently, they are 8.5 back of the Dirty Birds. 8 back of the Yankees. What they're doing, I thought Manoah had a really good start yesterday. Looked good, productive, and they bring him out again for the 7th inning and he gets lit up. Try to give him some confidence, but they lose. It's just stupidity. And you could argue they should have won Friday too, but just poor decisions with the bullpen and things of that nature. And they had a great comeback Saturday. You got to win 2 out of 3 of these games. You're 4 games below 500. The Rays are above you in the standings. The Red Sox are above you in the standings. If you get swept in this series, just for instance, Orioles would have 29 wins. The Blue Jays would have 18. You're not coming back from that because the Orioles are one of the best teams in baseball. A series loss here, and then you play the Rays for 3 at home. You really got to start making decisions on where you're going. Are we a playoff team? Romano, last couple of years of control. Do we want to keep him? Reportedly, the Orioles have interest in Jordan Romano, not having Felix Bautista in the back end of their bullpen. What is Vladdy? What is Bo Bichette? Are these guys the future of the organization? Have we been lying to ourselves that we're a contender the last number of years, even though we've never been close to being a contender? I don't know. Orioles did get roughed up this weekend. It's a good time to be getting them. Cubs, Braves, that's a good series starting tonight. Guardians, Rangers should be interesting. Athletics, Astros. Athletics are better than the Astros by 4 games at this point of the season, which is Royals, Mariners. Good series. Both teams above 500. Royals are 25-17, and yet they are 3rd in the AL Central. You don't see that too often, in particular in that division. Dodgers, Giants as well. Dodgers are on a streak right now, so we'll see what the Giants can do to counteract that. Be back Wednesday to react to everything. We'll preview the PGA Championship on Wednesday from Valhalla, so that's all forthcoming. Thank you for hanging out today. We'll talk to you Wednesday. I'm Noah Warren. This is To The Point.